Studies show that unfortunately, most people that lose weight are gonna gain it back. Why? Because how to maintain your weight is something that we haven't learned to master yet until this video. In today's video, I'm going to be sharing with you what I eat in a day to maintain my weight and share with you tips on how your diet should shift after you've lost weight to maintain that weight loss. Let's get started. If you're new here, hey, I'm Healthy Emmie. I'm a nutritionist, a weight loss specialist, and the creator of Slim. If you want to take all of the guesswork out of your weight loss, weight maintenance, or building muscle journey, check out Slim. It's in the description. Starting out with meal number one, breakfast. The first thing that you're going to see on my plate here is a tofu scramble, and I'll show you how to make that. But I want to talk about tofu and why this is a great option for individuals in weight maintenance. When you're in weight loss, you need to make sure that you are in a calorie deficit so that your body is turning to its fat stores to burn fat. You want to be eating less calories than your body burns in a day. But when you get into weight maintenance, if you continue to eat less calories than your body burns in a day, you'll continue to lose weight to a point where it's actually destructive to your health. So you have to actually bump up your calories just a little bit in order to maintain your weight loss. See, the problem is that most people lose the weight and then they say, well, now I have some wiggle room, so I can have the cookies and I can have some cake and some pizza and some chips, and then they end up regaining all the weight. But you want to very delicately turn up the calorie density of your diet just a little bit to move you into weight maintenance. So with the incorporation of tofu is a little bit more processed, it's a little bit more higher in protein and fat in comparison to what it comes from, which is soybeans, or if you were to have edamame, for example. This is the whole intact version of what tofu is. So this is going to be an option that's better for weight loss because it's the whole food version. So as we move from weight loss into weight maintenance, we see that the food is going to get a little bit more processed. And as it gets more processed, the calories are more easily absorbed by the body, which is good if you want to maintain your weight. Versus if you want to lose weight, you want the food to be a little bit more unprocessed and whole. So here's how I made the tofu scramble. So I have some shallots, some tofu. I pressed this to get the water out, and I will just crumble it. I'm gonna add in some nutritional yeast, some pepper, and some almond milk. And I'll add in some turmeric. The next thing that you are going to see on my plate is bread. Once again, bread is something that is more calorically dense and more processed. I always make sure to have a starch with my meals. I love my starch, I love my veggies, and those are always going to be present in my meals. As you move into weight maintenance, you want to have some more of the lightly processed starches like bread. If I were in weight loss, then I would be eating something like potatoes or cooked oatmeal. I would have something that's lower calorie density. It is a whole cooked wet starch. Versus in weight maintenance, you can have some more of the dry starches like the bread. Then I'm topping this with almond butter. Another example of something that's a little bit more calorically dense, a little bit higher in fat, that's okay to have when you're in weight maintenance in higher quantities because you want to maintain your weight. And then topping that with some sliced bananas. Then of course, I always have my veggies. This is something that is going to be present in weight loss and in weight maintenance because as you can see, the foods that I've put on my plate so far, I have bread, I have almond butter. These are calorically dense foods, and I want to make sure that I'm not exclusively eating calorically dense foods. I'm still eating an abundance of vegetables. So whether you're in weight loss or you're in weight maintenance, get those veggies in for all the micronutrients and to help balance out the calorie density. You don't want to be on either side of the spectrum when you're in weight maintenance. You don't want your food to be too low in calorie density because then you continue to lose weight, and you don't want your food to be too high in calorie density because then you'll end up gaining weight. So by bringing in the vegetables, this is how we find balance. Now you'll notice that I talked about that there is a little transition that happens when you're moving from weight loss into weight maintenance. And this is something that I walk you through step by step in the Slim program. And the Slim Program course, which I have developed this course over the course of years, I've had almost 4,000 clients, so I've seen this play out time and time and time again, and I've reformulated it and restructured it so it is good as gold to teach you. If you know how to do a 50-50 plate, half of your plate is veggies, half of your plate is starch, you have some legumes on there, and you need some help with transitioning into weight maintenance, I walk you through exactly how to formulaically do it in the Slim course to show you how many servings are we going to bring in, how are we going to monitor our weight, how are we going to make sure we don't overdo it. So I do walk you through that. Or alternatively, if you don't want to learn the formula behind it and you just want to be told what to eat to maintain your weight, then you can just go into Slim and say, give me a meal plan to maintain my weight, and that will be there too. Moving on to meal number 2, which some would say is called lunch. Oh my goodness. I always loved Caesar wraps growing up. Like in my teen years, I loved a Caesar salad wrap. So I made one. Let me show you how I made it. Here are the tortillas that I'm going to be using. They are the Ezekiel Food for Life tortillas. You can get these in the frozen section. You can look online on their website and see what stores carry them. I used to be able to find them at Whole Foods. I can't find them at Whole Foods anymore, but I can find them at another store in the area. The ingredients are absolutely fabulous. So it is all sprouted wheat, water, sesame seeds, soybeans, barley, millet, lentils, spelt, wheat, gluten, and salt, so they don't add any oil, which you are almost never going to find. These are the only tortillas, besides corn tortillas, that I know about that, oh, would you look at that, they actually brag no added oil. So they are totally in tune. But these are the only tortillas that I can find that don't have any oil added to them. And again, as you guys know, I'm not a proteinaholic, but I always think it's interesting to see that there's more protein in these things than you might think. So there is 7 grams of protein in just one tortilla. I almost always have in the fridge some tofu. So I have some tofu here and then some liquid aminos, and I'm gonna cut the tofu into strips and marinate it just for honestly a couple minutes before I throw it into the oven to bake. So I've decided to marinate it in 2 ways. This way on the right is kind of like when you're making bacon. So I cut it into strips that resemble bacon, and then I have the cubed here, and they are just resting in liquid aminos. When you cut it into really thin strips, these are super, super thin, and you toast it in the oven, it gets crispy like bacon. And so I think it would be nice to have this variety of textures here. I reuse my parchment paper. I reuse it to the death of me, and I might even stop using it entirely. I think I might, but I will throw this on parchment paper. The oven is at 425, and we'll bake it. All right, in she goes, 425 for about 20 minutes. You can see the quote-unquote bacon is nice and crispy. Yum, yum. In this little glass here, I have from my Healthy Dressing and Sauces cookbook. This is the Caesar dressing, so I'm going to use this for the dressing. You can get it in my cookbook. I have some romaine chopped up here, the dressing. I'm gonna toss it all in the bowl before I put it on the wrap. I've got some nutritional yeast here. I'm going to add that into the Caesar wrap. Once again, the example here of the tortilla being my starch of choice, but this being a little bit more processed. Whereas if I was looking to lose weight, I would probably do this over a baked potato, or I would do it over rice, or I would turn it into a salad and have some sweet potatoes on it. So as you can see in weight maintenance, opting for the more lightly processed starch, but still very high quality, as opposed to the unprocessed wet starch, something like rice or oatmeal or corn or sweet potatoes or quinoa or cooked grain or potatoes. Also, if I was in weight loss, I probably wouldn't have as hearty of a serving as grapes as I did here. This is a pretty big serving of grapes, but when you're in weight maintenance, you can be a little bit more lax with the servings of fruit. Whereas when you're in weight loss, if you are eating fruit up the wazoo, it's such an easy hand to mouth food that it can be hard to monitor how much of it you're actually having. So it's just something that you want to have a little bit more structure around. Am I saying fruit makes you fat or fruit? I'm not saying those things, but what I'm saying is you want to have a little bit more structure to those hand to mouth, easy to eat, yummy, delicious foods. And you want to make sure that you're having balance within your plate as well and not just eating a bunch of fruit. And of course, I'm going to take my B12. I actually just updated the formula, so it's 500 micrograms. I take this every day. You definitely want to make sure that you are taking B12 if you are on a plant-based diet. You're not going to get it from your food, so you got to get it from a supplement, and this is the cleanest one you're going to find. Lunch dessert. This saying is a running joke between my fiance and I, but hey, let me ask you a question. I'm currently developing 2 new recipe books simultaneously. I've been getting asked so often for more dessert recipes, and I already have a healthy desserts cookbook, but I've been asked for more. So I've been making raw, or not necessarily raw, but no-bake desserts, and I've also just been making traditional desserts. Should my next recipe book just be Healthy Desserts 2, and it has all the no-bake desserts and the cooked desserts, and it'll be out sooner? Or should I do 2 separate books, do a no-bake desserts cookbook, and then do, oh, you know what I just realized actually? I could do the whole cookbook together and make it healthy gluten-free desserts, but I do want to have a no-bake desserts cookbook. Either way, these are 2 of the recipes that I've been creating, so they will be coming in the cookbook. One of them is my Copycat Air 1 cinnamon roll recipe, and the other one is a sweet potato brownie recipe. So I had one of each. Final meal of the day, I had a little appetizer of my nachos. On the nachos, I made a little bit of a lentil mixture, sort of like a lentil taco meat. Let me show you how it went down. So I have the beginnings of a lunch here. I've got some corn tortillas I'm going to turn into nachos. I'm soaking some lentils. I really want to use up my lentils. Maybe I'll make a lentil soup, but lentil taco meat I'm going to just throw together. And then I've got some chopped up peppers and onions in my steamer. Let's make some nachos. I'm totally making something up for the taco meat here. I have some red onions and some garlic, and I'm going to throw in some tomato paste. So I've got this tubed tomato paste. I'll throw some of that in, and we'll start to saute it. I'm gonna add in these soaked lentils. I did a 1/4 of a cup of dry lentils, soaked it in a 1/2 cup of water, and then I drained it and then added those drained lentils into here and added another 1/2 cup of water. And I'll just cook it until the water comes off and then let it sit for a bit. All right, the lentils cooked fairly quickly here, and I think I'm actually gonna pulse them in the food processor a bit to give it more of a meaty texture. So I've got it in the food processor here. Let's pulse it up a bit. I'm gonna add some salsa into the lentil taco meat. And then for the nachos, for the corn tortillas, I baked those at 400 for about 10 minutes. You have to watch them, make sure that they don't burn. It depends on the thickness of the tortilla, how hot your oven is, what type of a pan you're using. So I baked those chips, no oil, just straight up, and then put on top of it my queso from the Healthy Dressings cookbook. And then I topped it with the lentil mixture that I showed you, as well as some salsa and some guac, and then steamed up some veggies and threw it on top. If I were in weight loss, you see the corn tortillas are a little bit more highly processed. There's not a huge amount of vegetables here. So if I were in weight loss, I would have more of a structured plate where half of my plate is vegetables. And if I wanted to do Mexican style, instead of the corn tortillas, do rice and corn, and having half of the plate be water sauteed or steamed vegetables, the other half of the plate corn and rice, and then throw some black beans on there. If I were doing a queso, to not do a cashew-based queso, but to do a potato-based queso, whereas this one was my cashew-based queso. And then I had from the Healthy Holidays cookbook, I just had a hankering, now that we're getting into fall, for my butternut squash risotto, and I went to the store and there was no butternut squash. But I still had it in my mind that that's what I was having. So I just made it without the butternut squash. That is one of my favorite recipes. But again, the arborio rice is a little bit more processed as opposed to a brown rice. It's a little bit more refined. There is some white cooking wine that's in there. That's something that if I were in weight loss, I wouldn't include that. I would have something that's a little bit less refined and more fiber-dense, whole grain intact starches if I were in weight loss, and I wouldn't have the bread with it. But in weight maintenance, it's okay to do. So I know you're probably thinking, I want to get to this point where I can have this stuff. You absolutely can get there. Join Slim, release the weight, we'll do that, and then we'll move you into weight maintenance. And this is the diet you'll sustain for life. And you can stop the flip-flopping and the yo-yoing between extreme dedication to the weight loss game, getting there, and then self-sabotaging and regaining the weight and just flip-flopping back and forth. You have to learn the art of the middle path, which is a very delicate dance, and it's individualized too. So everybody's weight maintenance diet is going to look a little bit different. This is one that might work for my body, but it might not necessarily work for your body. The principles still hold true, but you can't just copy the exact same thing that I ate and think that it's gonna work for your body. You're an individual, and so we wanna make sure that you are crafting a diet that's going to work specifically for you and your body, your age, your activity, your goals in terms of fitness, any other health concerns that we want to address, your lifestyle, what your past relationship with food has looked like. It's so many things that we want to consider here, but I hope that the principles from today's video have shined some light to some of the dietary changes that we want to make in order to help you maintain the weight loss that you've worked so hard for. Let me know any requests you have for future What I Eat in a Day videos. I put up on Instagram and I asked, what theme do you want? So what I eat in a day for hormone health, for gut health, for anti-bloating, for menstrual cravings, for glowing skin. Not saying that my skin glows, but for great sleep, for a sweet tooth. Let me know. And if you made it to this point of the video, let me tell you something. If you made it to this point of the video, you have proven you have the ability to play the long game, to be patient and trusting and willing to do the work because you watched this entire video. The people that didn't make it to this point of the video are the people that are looking for the instant gratification and are gonna struggle with maintaining their weight in the long term. But if you made it to this point in the video, you are somebody that has dedication and consistency and you stick with something, you stuck with this video. So I know that you can be successful. So join Slim so we can make it happen, and leave a comment that says, stick with it, because you are going to stick with it and see this through in the long run. I believe in you. I love you, honeys, and I'll see you in my next video.